I believe that when you truly know yourself, you win. Welcome to On the Daily, the podcast where we dive real deep into human design, astrology, and your subconscious mind, all with the intention of you building your idea of a big delusional life and an even more delusional business. My name is Danielle McCleerey, and I am a master human design and astrology teacher, somatic coach, business mentor, public speaker, and seven-figure entrepreneur. My biggest gift is the ability to see beneath the surface, and I think too many people look outside of themselves for who they should be and what they should be doing. Around here, that is unacceptable. Around here, we break the matrix and really remember who the heck we are underneath all the programming. This podcast will give you all of the tools, mindset, and practical application you'll need to be everything you came here to be in the shiniest way possible. Are you with me? Let's freaking go. Hello, welcome back to On the Daily. I'm your host, Danielle, and in this episode, we are going to be discussing parenting for human design. So I talk a lot about human design. I talk a lot about just, how to live your life according to your unique blueprint. But one thing I don't talk about a lot, which I really live and, do every single day is how to raise your kids according to their human design. And since Mother's Day is this week, I figured let's do a Mother's Day episode for all my mamas out there. And we'll talk about all things human design, from getting your kid to sleep based on what their human design is to, how they're meant to make decisions, how you can both support them. I think it'll be a really beneficial episode, especially if you're a mom and if you have young kids. This will make all the difference. So let's dive in. I have launched a brand new membership. It is called the Cosmic Labs. And what I wanted with this membership was a space where people could go and exist and be a part of, that they would never have to preface themselves or apologize for their witchy or woo-woo mind. I think in our society, there's so many times where you're like, this is going to sound crazy, but I think this has something to do with my chart or whatever. And I just think that gets so exhausting. And so what I wanted to create was a true space, not for beginners, but for people who understand astrology and understand human design and are really just looking for a community and a space where you can integrate it flawlessly and seamlessly into your life, from your business, the way you operate in your relationships, the way you parent, the way you make decisions, the way that you decide where to live, the way you interact with the world around you when things feel like they're burning, as so many things in our world do right now. The Cosmic Labs is a 3-tier membership. So different levels of access at each point based on what you need. You might just need 2 monthly calls where I discuss all of the transits happening that month, and then you get to go and integrate them into your chart. That is tier 1. Tier 2 comes with all of that, plus an extra call per month where you would get to ask me questions. It's called a chart clinic. So based on your specific chart, I answer questions for you. And you also get access to, if I bring in Akashic Records experts or, somatic healers or psychics or other types of spiritual support, you'll get access to that in that middle tier. And then the higher tier is really where, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a high level achiever and you really want one-on-one support when it comes to integrating your chart and integrating your astrology and your human design into your nervous system, into your business, into your relationships, that top tier, it's called the council, you will get all of the things from tier 1 and 2, plus discounts to my retreats, plus one-on-one access to me in a call. You get a one-on-one call per month, plus your own, the council has its own private Slack channel where, we can go deeper and really discuss on a personalized basis. So depending on what you need, there's different access points, but I'm so excited about this membership. I'm really excited to build and cultivate this community inside of here. I just think that the world is shifting so fast, and we really do need spaces where we can connect with people who just get it, instead of always having to preface or explain ourselves or justify, to just have a community that gets it, and you can just get to work. And, as much as I love, when a million people watch one of my TikToks about astrology, it can go so much deeper than that. And I really just wanted to open up this community. So the Cosmic Labs is officially open for registration. The link is in the show notes. You can also go to DanielleMcCleerey.com/Cosmic Labs if you want to learn more. And hopefully I'll see you inside. We officially take off. We launch on May 12th. So it's coming up. And also, even if you're like not going to join us, at least go look at the website we created, because I have never prided myself on being like self-made. I am very clear about how grateful and lucky I am to work with so many incredible artists. And my friend and website designer, Carissa, who owns Soul Bright Studios, just absolutely crushed this sales experience in this website. So at least go look at the website, because it is the most beautiful, gorgeous website you've ever seen in your entire life. And that alone makes me so happy. So the Cosmic Labs open for registration. Hopefully I will see you inside. The paradigm is shifting, and I am so ready to build community from that point. So let's get into this episode. Happy Mother's Day here in the US this week to all my moms out there. I really love being a mom. It was something I never said. It was something I always said I was never going to do. I was never going to be a mom. I was always going to be the fun aunt that just didn't really have a zip code and traveled around the world. And joke's on me. Being a mom is the best thing that's ever happened to me. It's not enough for me. And I definitely, have always tried to imprint that on my son, that like being your mom is my greatest adventure, but it's not enough. And so, me building my own business and having my own goals is still really important to me. And it's important that Owen gets to see me doing that. And being his mom is the greatest adventure ever. And so this episode is going to be for the moms. And the parents in general. Like if you're a parent, this episode's going to be for you, because I'm going to talk about raising your kid according to their human design, something that I think is so important. And I'm going to share some personal stories along the way, but let's do this, because I have a lot to say. Okay, I think the best way to do this is just to kind of go through each of the different human design types as kids and give you tips and pointers based on those things. So the first thing you're going to want to do, if you're new to this and you haven't ever really looked up your human design before, but you're interested in like sleep, like let's say you have little like infants or toddlers and they are not sleeping, you actually can get them to sleep just by knowing their human design and really honoring that within them. So if you're new to this, the first thing you need to do is go to like myhumandesign.com and type in your kid's birth info. You need the birth city, birth time, and birth city, time, date, what day they were born, what time they were born, and where they were born. And then it'll tell you what type they are. So you'll just need to know whether they're a generator, manifesting generator, projector, reflector, or manifestor. And I'll give you some tips. So let's start with projectors, because I have a projector, and I have a soft spot for projector children. My son is a 4/6 ego projector in human design, and my wife and I and his dad are all generators. His dad and I are both 6/2 sacral generators. My wife, his stepmom, is a 1/3 sacral generator. So he is a projector, an ego projector child being raised by sacral generators. And that could have easily been a recipe for disaster, because the energy of a generator and the energy of a projector is so vastly different. If we're thinking of each type I've talked about this before, but each type as like parts of a car. Projectors are the steering wheel. We don't know where we're going without them, but generators are the engine of the car. The car can't run without us. So the energy of those two types, very different. It's long distance runner energy versus sprinter energy. And so I always say that knowing and raising our son according to his human design and his astrology. He's an Aquarius with a Taurus rising, and he has an Aries moon, and that's big. But specifically his human design, really knowing his human design and raising him from that perspective I I honestly can't imagine, and I know this is so common for projectors. If you're a mom and you're a projector, or if you're listening to this and you're an adult as a projector, I can't even imagine how many times when you were a kid, people called you lazy or told you that you needed to work harder or called you bossy or aggressive or a know-it-all. Um, or just like never asked for your help because they just, treated you like a kid who didn't know anything. And that's pretty common of projectors as kids. They have these big ideas. They're here to guide us. They're here to lead us. They're here to be recognized. They're here to shine. And the world doesn't really know what to do with that. So you have a lot of projector kids that are like, I don't need to be productive 24/7 in order to be effective. And it's true because projectors are highly efficient, very small battery, but very efficient battery. And they can get more done in an hour than us generators can do in 8. And as kids, I don't think they're always like trusted in that. So I think a lot of projector kids are called lazy, because they don't want to keep up with people. They're not interested in being active all day on the weekends. And, it's interesting because my son, again, he's a projector and his spring break just happened. And we were supposed to go to Disney World. He and I were going to fly to Disney World and go to Disney World with my best friend and her kids. And like 3 days before we left, he goes, Mom, I don't think I want to go. I just feel like Disney World's going to be really overstimulating for me. And he moved to a new school this year that was more conducive to the way he learns, which is a lot more. He's very advanced academically, but he needed a space that was going to cultivate that and also not just pin him as like the smart kid. So he ended up with like social asynchronicities. So we moved him schools. And so this is the first time I think he's really experiencing like challenge at school, which is a really good thing. And it's been overstimulating. So by the time he's getting to the end of the session at his school, he's thinking like, oh my gosh, now I have to go to Disney World for the week. And, as a generator, I'm like, I would have sold my left arm as a child to go to Disney World. But his energy doesn't work like that. And so when he came to me and was like, Mom, I don't think I want to go. I think I want to stay home. I want to rest. He said, I want to like make music. He's super into DJing and drumming. And he's like, I think I just want to stay home and make music and rest. And I think most parents would be like, no, we already bought tickets. We're going. And I think for some things I probably would have, like if we were going to a family wedding or if, it was something like a sports thing. Also, if you have a projector child, they're probably not that competitive and they probably don't want to play sports. And maybe they do. Maybe they found something that they're really good at. But I find that a lot of projector children are typically more artistic than competitive. And I'm like, Owen could care less about sports, but he loves art and he loves music and he's so smart when it comes to music. So when he came to me and said that he just wanted to stay home and do music, I listened to him. And I think that that's unconventional. And I think a lot of parents probably would have made their kid go because we committed. But I was like, it's Disney World. I'm not going to go spend thousands of dollars at Disney World if you don't want to go. Hello. Absolutely not. But second, I have to honor your battery here. And if you're 9 years old and self-aware enough to come to me and say, I'm going to be overstimulated if we go to Disney World all week, who am I not to honor that in him? Right? So if you have projector children, their battery is very small and very efficient. Owen took naps. Owen still will take a nap sometimes. If I'm like, hey, bud, you're going to take a nap today, he like kind of fights me on it just because, he's at that age where he's too old for naps, but he always will sleep. And he'll sleep for 2 hours in the middle of the day. The kid will sleep. He's a sleeper. Your projector children, they enjoy sleeping. It's really important too, if you have a young projector child, projector kids get really overstimulated. And so if you put them to bed exhausted, it's probably going to work against you and they're not going to sleep. It's really important that if you have a projector child, you put them down to bed before they're actually tired. So Owen's always had like an abnormally early bedtime. And compared to his friends, that go to bed at 9 or 10 p.m., Owen's in bed by 7:30, 8 o'clock. And he's asleep by 8:30 at the latest. And that makes all the difference in the world because of how I know his battery works. If you have a projector child, you ask them for their advice. Even if, and I was asked this recently on a podcast. They're like, well, what do you do if, you have this projector child and they have their own idea about what they want to do, but like you are doing what you want to do. And that can be tricky because obviously we're still their parents. And I'm not talking about, becoming best friends with your kid. I'm very much my child's mother. And I don't play that game of like, we're best friends. No, I'm your mother. Like that's my job, is to be your mother. And I'm not going to parentify my child. And like, I heard somebody say recently that one thing they're really proud of is how, they don't just parent their child, they let their child parent them. And I think that is the worst thing I've ever heard. I think that is absolutely absurd. It screams daddy issues. It screams mommy issues. We shouldn't be parentifying our children. Our children are our children. There will be a time when they become parents, maybe, and that's their choice, but they do not need to parent us. So in no way is this podcast episode telling you that you need to be parentifying your children or becoming their best friend. This is about learning how to parent them the best. And I think that if you have a projector child, Owen never wants to go run errands. Like zero chance he wants to go run errands. So knowing that, we're still running errands. I'm not just going to be like, hey, bud, do you want to run errands today? Because he's going to say no every single time. He has ego intuition. Like the right way for Owen is always what he wants. And that is never to run errands. And so because I know that about him, I'm not going to like, we're still running errands. But instead of being like, hey, we're going to run errands right now, get your shoes on, let's get in the car, which is what I think most parents do. That's how I was raised. I will instead change my tactic and I'll say, hey, we need to leave to run errands by this time. So what would you like to do in the meantime? How would you like to spend your time this morning before we go do that? Or, hey, these are the errands we need to run today. What order do you think we should run them in? If we have to go to Target and then we have to run by, the auto parts store, we have to go to the grocery store. I'll give Owen the list of everything we have to do that day and be like, hey, here's what we have to do today. What order do you think we should do them in? He now, as a projector who's here to guide us, who's here to lead us, he gets to help me and he gets to make the plans with me, even though it's the plans that we need to do and he's going to do them. Making him feel included is really big for him. Telling your projector child that you value their insight too. Huge, huge. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've talked to projector adults who are like, oh, I would always try to give my opinion as a kid. And like my parents would be like, no, this is adult stuff. You don't need to know about this, or we don't need your help. Like you're just a kid. And I hate to break it to you, parents, but your projector child has more foresight and thinks farther ahead and sees the world in a way that you never could if you're not a projector. And I know that about Owen. He sees the world in ways that I can't. And so I do value his insight. And I will always ask, what do you think? A good example of this is I was making a sales page a few months ago for my charted masterclass, teaching you how to read your own chart. And I had him take a look at the sales page. And like, I already made it. It's done. But I know how much he values that. So I said, hey, can you look at this and tell me what you think? And he said, he gave me some pointers on what we should add. And I was like, you know what? I didn't even think of that. That's a great idea. And we added it. Like, your projector child has insight that you can't even imagine. And it's really important that you let them shine. Don't ever call your projector child lazy. Even if, a lot of generator and MG parents they deliver projector children. And that's because the projector's is sent here and chooses to come here to teach us how to be more efficient with our life. And it's such a beautiful lesson that our projector child is here to teach us, but it can feel like a lot. And this is a conversation his dad and I have had a lot, because his dad is very much like, this kid is he tells me like, oh, he's so lazy. I'm like, yeah, but that's like sacred. That's divine about him. And The fact that he doesn't feel like he needs to keep up with anyone, and he doesn't feel the need to hustle, and he doesn't feel the need to rush, it triggers us as generators, because our whole life we were praised for how busy we were. And so it's an unlearning for us and a wound for us that our child literally could care less about keeping up with anyone. And so I was telling a friend the other day, I said, I can't even imagine who Owen's going to become never, ever being told that he's lazy. He's never been told that he's lazy. He's never been made to feel like he's not doing enough. He's never been made to feel that he is moving too slowly, because we understand his human design. So, projector mamas, if you have a projector, they have a very small and very efficient battery. After 3 hours of doing anything, they either need a nap or a snack. And remember that they're here to guide and they're here to lead, so give them opportunities to do so. Okay, let's talk about manifestor children. I have a story about this, actually. So a friend of mine who is a projector, actually, she recently had a manifestor son, and she and I were just randomly talking one night, and she just happened to say, like, I think jokingly even, she was like, do you have any advice for how to get my son to sleep? And I said, wait, what's his human design? And she's like, he's a manifestor. And I was like, oh, okay. If you are a mother to a manifestor child and you are finding it hard to get them to go to sleep, I want you to ask yourself, how much are you trying to get them on a routine that you came up with? How much are you trying to hold them and snuggle them and soothe them to go to sleep? Because here's the thing, manifestors have closed auras. Even as children, they have closed auras. They do not need to be coddled all the time, nor should they be. Actually, manifestor children like to be alone. Even babies, okay? My friend's son is a baby, like less than a year old. Even at that age, though, they prefer to self-soothe most of the time. And I think if you have a manifestor child and you're finding it hard to get them to go to sleep, remember that they are here to initiate. That is what they're here for. So initiating their own self-soothing, their own sleep ritual, huge. Now, I'm not saying don't ever put them on a schedule, but instead of demanding the schedule, invite them to the schedule so that as they get older, they feel like they're in control, even if they're not. Like, even if they have a bedtime, get them feeling like they're in control of their bedtime routine, right? So invite them to start their bedtime routine. What I told my friend was like, hey, don't hold him, like put him in a bassinet, as much as that's going to kill your heart, because as a projector, you just want to make sure everyone's okay. But he might need to just like be alone. And so put him in a rocker, put him in a bassinet, put him in his crib, whatever it is, let him soothe himself. And I guarantee you he'll go to sleep. And while he's doing that, you go do something for you in another room. The more you try to hold a manifestor child, the more they're going to like arch their back and like push away from you, because they actually just need to like remove their energy from yours. So the next day, she sent me a text and was like, oh my gosh, like we got all like 6 hours of sleep, which is like 3 times more than we've ever gotten. And like her son woke up full of smiles, super happy. And I was like, imagine that, like even as a baby, she was able to show him, I understand you, I get you, and I'm going to give you what you need. Even as an infant, to just instinctively know that your mom understands you, that's so big. Like, that's so huge. That is so amazing. They all got sleep. I was so happy for them. But yeah, if you have a manifestor, remember, like they're here to initiate. They're here to start things. And so being told what to do, even from infancy, not great. And I'm not saying that you're never going to tell them what to do. You're their parent. It's your job to guide them and lead them and raise them. And there are ways that you can do that don't make them feel like you're putting them in a box or you're trapping them in a certain system or your flow or what you think is right, because they're always going to rebel against that. Manifestors, you're going to notice your manifestor kid has big ideas, and they come out of nowhere too. Like, that's the other thing about a manifestor kid. It comes out of nowhere. And you may think that it's like unfounded or it's just like another crazy idea that they have, but it's not. They go through these cycles. Manifestors, they spend a lot of time in a rest cycle, in an observation mode where they're just paying attention. They're seeing what the world needs and they're creating, and their urges are coming from the need to bring very innovative solutions to complicated problems that people may not even realize they have yet. So don't be surprised if your manifestor kid is solving problems that you didn't even know were a problem. And I think sometimes parents of manifestor kids, their kids will come to them and be like, I have an idea for how we can blah, 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 blah. And you're like, that's not, we don't even need to do that. What do you mean? Right now we're trying to get our shoes on and go to school. And they're thinking about how to, get the squeaking sound from their door out. And you're like, that's not a problem right now. And they're like, no, it is. And I have a solution for it. Listen to your manifestor child. Let them share their big ideas. Remember, they have very innovative solutions to very complicated problems. And it's really important that they feel in control of their day. They feel in control of their decisions. They feel in control of their ideas without somebody trying to squash it or make them feel small or, put them in a box. So if you have a manifestor child, they're rare. They are here. They are leaders. But they're also not leaders all the time. They don't like to be micromanaged, and they don't like to micromanage. So if you start to notice, if your kid is like, your manifestor child is growing up and maybe they, when they get to middle school now, people want them to be like student body president because they have such great ideas. Let them lead that decision. If they don't feel like that's what they want to do, it's probably because they just don't have the energy to sustain that, and that's okay. Manifestor energy, as if we're thinking of parts of a car, they're the ignition. So the car can't start without them, but if you could never expect the ignition to be the engine. It doesn't work like that. So just think about that when it comes to your manifestor child. Let them initiate, let them soothe. They have a closed aura, so they need time away from people, especially when they're little. That's how you get them to sleep. Let them have alone time and they will sleep. I promise you that. Okay, let's talk about manifesting generator children. These are the multipassionate kids. These are the kids that have a lot of different ideas. They want to try a lot of different things. And I think society has made manifesting generator children feel like they are flaky or that they quit things or that they're not committed to anything. And that is just not true. It's more that manifesting generator children master things very quickly. So it's very possible that if you have an MG child, they're going to want to try lots of different sports. They're going to want to try lots of different clubs. They're going to do things for a little while and then get bored and put it down. MGs get bored really fast because they're operating so quickly and they master things so fast. They get over it really fast. And we live in a world that tells you to like never quit and like stay committed to things. And listen, like there's ways that you go around that. I was asked a question again on a podcast recently where somebody said, I have an MG child and, they'll start like soccer and then halfway through the season, they don't want to play soccer anymore. And I don't know how to navigate that because I know that I'm not supposed to like keep them in a box, but also they have a commitment. And yeah, I agree. Like it's also important to teach your child, especially an MG child who their nature is to, when they're bored, walk away from something. And there's an importance to being there for your team. There's an importance for following. There's an importance in life for follow through. So as a parent of an MG child, it's really important that you teach them like, hey, you signed up for soccer this season. You're going to finish out the season because that's what we do. We want to be people, like we want to show up for the things we show up for. We want to be a good team player. And if you don't want to play again next season, that's okay. So I think there's ways around it, and don't be surprised if your MG child like decides I'm going to do something and then the next year decides they don't want to do it, even if they're good at it. Chances are they're going to be good at a lot of things. They're MGs. They master things quickly. So, I've seen this happen with a friend of mine. Her kid is super musical and plays the guitar really well, but he's an MG. And, he played the guitar for a couple years. He got really, really good at it. And then he decided he didn't want to play the guitar anymore. And the parents, like her and her husband were so mad about it because they were like, we spent all this money on these lessons and whatever. And I just tried to explain to her, I'm like, listen, like he's probably going to pick up the guitar again sometime in his life, but let him go and play the drums for a while, or let him go play piano for a while, because as an MG, you're piecing together all these little things, and somehow eventually you find this like through line. So like watch this kid go be like the leader of an orchestra someday. Watch this kid end up being like the next Ed Sheeran, who literally plays 25 instruments on stage. Like there's no way you can predict that, but trying to like box your MG child in is just going to cause them to have a lot of behavioral issues. It's going to cause a lot of dysregulated nervous system issues. They're going to just feel like they have to keep up with everyone, that the way that they naturally are is not correct. So then we have a lot of MGs that, have to overcome people pleasing and self-sabotage as they get older. And I think as a mom of an MG child, the best way you can navigate through that is to understand they have a lot of passions, to understand they have a lot of different ways of working, that they're not always going to want to, do the same thing for long. And they also are going to have a lot of really big ideas because they are part manifestor. So they do have this initiating energy. So listen to their ideas, take their ideas on board, let them run with whatever. Even if you don't understand it, like let them run with it, because you just don't know where it's going to go. And MGs are really here to show us that we don't have to live in boxes. So by you making a conscious effort to not put your MG child in a box, amazing. Like amazing, amazing, amazing. Okay, let's talk about generator kids. So generator kids are often good students. A lot of overachievers. We try really hard in school, and I say I'm a generator. So I think back to like who I was as a kid. Generator and MG kids, by the way, for sleep, really important to put them asleep exhausted. Like if you try to put them to bed before they're like tired, they're going to stay up all night because they're like our minds race, and like we're always thinking and we're always like busy. So, I think for a lot of MG kids and a lot of generator kids, getting rid of that like second nap early when they're babies, and maybe they just take one nap, and then you're probably going to get rid of the nap pretty early on, because putting them to bed like tired at the end of the day is so much better for them. And I know what you're thinking. You're like, no, but that nap time in the middle of the day is like my time. Yes. And you have a generator or an MG child. So if you don't put them to bed exhausted, they're going to stay up all night, or they're going to wake up a lot in the middle of the night. They're going to be very restless sleepers. The more tired you can put them to bed, the harder they're going to sleep throughout the night. It's just the way it is. But generator kids, it can happen really fast because generator kids like to be busy, and they're charismatic and they're kind of magnetic kids. Everybody wants to be around them. So they usually are like the kids that, they're playing 3 sports, they're in all the clubs, and they can overwork themselves. But then what happens, I think, is society is like, wow, you're so busy. Amazing. Like, look at you. You're captain of the dance team, but you're also student body president. That's so amazing. And you get good grades. So a lot of generator kids get it programmed very early into them that the only way that they're loved, or like their worthiness, is tied to their productivity. And it's really important, if you're the parent of a generator child, you also allow them to rest, and you also praise them for their rest, their ability to say no, right? A lot of generator kids get it into their head that saying yes is what they have to do. So they're like, full body yes is always tied to the praise they receive for saying yes versus actually what they want to do. So if you're the parent of a generator child, like, ask them what they want, right? Generators and MGs are similar in this. You got to give them options as kids. So let's say you have a 4-year-old generator child. Don't ask them, what do you want for lunch today? Ask them, do you want strawberries or bananas? Because they have that sacral battery, we need to be given options. And that carries on into adulthood, by the way. Like if you have two generators, my wife and I always laugh about this, like two generators in a house, you want to know what causes the biggest fights? The question, what do you want for dinner? Just give me options. Give me two choices. I'll pick one, but don't just ask me what I want for dinner, because my sacral needs to be able to respond based on options. Your kids are the same way. So the more options you can give your kids, the better. Hey, Friday night, do you want to go see a movie or do you want to stay home? Hey, this weekend, do you want to clean your room first or do you want to clean your bathroom first? Don't just say, what are you going to clean first? Because it's going to frustrate them. It's going to confuse their channel, because they're sacral beings. They need to be given options. So, if you're the parent of a young generator or an MG child, if they're picky eaters, don't ask them what they want for lunch. Give them options. Let them choose, right? Let their sacral decide. And for sleep, please, please, please make sure that you put them to bed exhausted. You will get so much better sleep if your child went to bed tired as a generator or an MG. If you try to put them to bed only a few hours after they had their nap, they're going to be up all night. They're going to be up all night. You're going to be up all night. It's going to be miserable and you're going to be exhausted. And again, as a lot of generator kids have projectors, a lot of projector parents have generator or manifesting generator kids. So you have this parent who loves to sleep tied with this child who doesn't really like to sleep. It can cause for a lot of turmoil in the house if we're not honoring the kid's design. So yes, throughout the day, they're going to need to be entertained more. A lot of generator kids really love to be cuddled. They like to be hugged. They like to be, and I think I'm thinking back to my own child. I'm having an inner child moment right now. I think back to when I was a kid. I think I really needed a lot more hugs, but because I was so confident and because I was such a busy girl and I was always as I got older, it was I went to softball, then I went to dance practice, then I went to dance class, I went to softball practice, then I went to swim team, and then I did all these things. And so there's always this assumption of Danielle's got it. She's good. She's my strong girl. I don't ever have to tell her to do her homework. She just does it. There was a lot of that energy that sometimes it didn't come with hugs and love, right? And so hug your generator kid, cuddle them, let them know that you're proud of them, let them know that you see them. Don't just assume that they know that. I think that's really big for generator and MG children. Okay, then reflector kids. Your babies are so rare and they're so precious and they're so sacred. A reflector is a sponge. They're a sponge. Their energy is so interchangeable. They are chameleons. So you will find that raising a reflector child, they are going to take on the energy that you give them. So I almost think for reflector kids, it's not so much about the way that you it's the environment you set up for them. It's you being able to parent yourself as the parent of a reflector child, you being able to parent yourself and to really make sure that you're managing your own nervous system before dealing with or handling or parenting your reflector child is so big, because they absorb everything. They absorb everything. And they are sponges. They just are learning, more is caught than taught. So true for reflectors. They are paying attention to every cue you give them. So if if you're raising a reflector child and you're trying to let's say you're trying to put them to bed, put them in an environment for sleep. Right? They are going to be very affected by their environment. So if you've been really stressed all day and you're, on your phone trying to put your reflector child to bed, they're absorbing your anxiety, which is going to make it harder for them to sleep. Put your kid, put your reflector child in the environment that they need to be able to go to sleep. Put them in a sleep-inducing environment. If you want them to eat, put them in a food-inducing environment. Don't overstimulate them by having the TV on. Like, let mealtime be mealtime so they can absorb the energy of this experience. Friends, your reflector child will have a lot of different friends. Like, a lot of different friends. They will not have one friend group, but it's really important that you don't just assume that they're the outcast, that they're the black sheep of their friends. Like, it is their greatest superpower that they can adapt to lots of different people, and really inspiring that in them, because society tells you if you don't have like a core group of friends, you're a loner, you're a loser. Break that stigma for your reflector child so fast, and like ingrain it into them that their chameleonness is actually their greatest superpower. It is their greatest gift. And it's honestly why they will be so great, because they understand people so well. They are the true empaths of the collective. And because they feel everything, their environment is the most important thing for them. So if their room is a mess when they're going to bed, they may not sleep well. So encouraging the environment to be conducive to that activity is the way to go with a reflector, for sure. And then, in terms of and then in addition to all of this, it's really important that you understand your own human design, right? Like, you understand how you operate as much as you understand how your kid operates. Because if you only understand how they operate, but then you're just operating from a shadow all the time, that's not conducive to your child either. You want to model the behavior for them. And so, I think this goes, like, I've seen this happen where I see parents, they eat like super unhealthy. They treat their own bodies miserably. They constantly are saying how they're fat and they don't feel right in their bodies, or, whatever horrible things we say to ourselves, right? Like, as moms, we like, I hate my body. I feel fat. I feel this. I feel that. But then we're like turning around and being like, you're beautiful. Don't ever say that about yourself. And it's like, well, what are you modeling for your kid? Right? So I think moms, the way you speak to yourself needs to be reflected in the way you speak to your kids, and vice versa. The way you speak to your children has to be reflected in the way that you speak to yourself. The way that you do this is by understanding yourself. When you know yourself, you win. This applies to us. This applies to the way we parent. And so, as much as learning your kids' human design is important, and by the way, I offer family readings. So you can always book a human design reading with me, and I can read your kids' chart instead of yours, or I can kind of do like a family reading. That's all available on my website in the Work With Me tab. You just scroll down to the natal chart and human design reading. Book it for anyone. Because there'll be a space when you book to kind of tell me who it's for. So if we're reading your kids, you can write that in the notes, and then I'll know that we're reading your kids' charts. So yeah, it's important that you understand yourself as much as you understand your kids. But mamas, you're amazing. Nobody needs to tell you this, all the rhetoric out there where it's like, moms are just as strong as other people. Like, that is such a tired argument. I'm so tired of hearing that story. Like, duh we are. And we don't need to try to prove that anymore. We don't need to try to convince anybody of that anymore, because the right people understand that. So it's almost like, who are you marketing to as a mom? Are you marketing to people that are just committed to thinking that moms are less than? Great. Those aren't your people. Like, your people are the ones who get it. They understand how strong moms are. They understand what you go through every single day as a mom to like heal your own shit, but also raise your kids. The right people get that. So let's speak to those people more. Let's lead with that energy. Instead of the victim. I think the victimhood that a lot of society tries to project onto mothers, I just don't think we need to subscribe to it anymore. So I'm wishing you a very happy Mother's Day, and cheers to us as moms for healing all of the generational shit so that our kids never have to feel it. Okay, friends, I'll be back next week with another episode. Love ya. Bye.